As good as the current generation of fighters are, both the F-15 and the F-16 designs will be nearly 20 years old soon. The Air Force hopes to replace them later in the decade with the Advanced Tactical Fighter, the ATF. Edwards Air Force Base has been the center for testing the new design. The ATF program began in 1981. The program was a competitive development effort with two industrial teams designing two different aircraft, the YF-22 and the YF-23, to meet the Air Force requirements. The Air Force was looking for major breakthroughs in two areas of fighter design compared to the older F-15 Eagle. First, they wanted the new fighter to incorporate as many stealth features as possible without compromising the aircraft's performance. Earlier stealth aircraft, such as the F-117, were really ground attack aircraft not intended to dogfight with other aircraft. The earlier stealth configurations, as on the F-117, were ill-suited to a fast, maneuverable fighter. So a new generation of stealth technology was needed. Stealth is intended to reduce the aircraft's visibility on enemy radar screens. This is critical in modern dogfighting. Radars give fighters the ability to see one another beyond human eyesight, and radar is used to guide long-range missiles against opposing fighters. By reducing radar visibility, the stealth fighter pilot can see his opponent first and shoot him down with long-range missiles before the opponent's radar can spot the stealth aircraft. In pilot's lingo, stealth gives the fighter first look, first kill, the ability to spot the enemy first and shoot him down first. The second major technological breakthrough for the ATF was dubbed Super Cruise. To reach supersonic speeds, current fighters must use their afterburners. This boosts the power of their engines, but at the cost of higher fuel consumption. Super Cruise promises to offer supersonic flight at the lower level of engine power, called military power, rather than at the higher level, with afterburners.
What you address is what we term as super cruise, the ability for the airplane to cruise supersonically without using afterburner. The real benefit there in super cruise, the way I look at it, is probably twofold. It allows me to get from A to B faster with hopefully a reduced amount of fuel burn. But the biggest benefit, I think, is reducing my threat envelope while perhaps expanding the vulnerability envelope of potential enemies. What can happen when I super cruise as far as reducing my own threat envelope, and there's several things that play into that, are if I'm in military power or below, not afterburner, then one would guess my IR signature, infrared signature of the airplane is reduced. So that one factor would reduce some of my threat envelope. Also, the speed, as it increases, allows less time for threats, either airborne or ground threats, to acquire me, less time and distance that I'm actually in their envelope if it's a ground site, and that whole cone of vulnerability starts shrinking. So that's probably the biggest benefit. One thing that the F-22 is stressing is not only to be able to cruise supersonically, but also to perform there. If we needed to brake turn or do a rapid pointing maneuver to aim at another airplane for some reason, I still have the ability to maneuver the airplane, roll the airplane, and build up some G on the airplane supersonically. And hopefully the F-22 will be able to do that quite a bit better than current generation fighters.
Both the YF-22 and YF-23 were put through their paces at Edwards to see if they met the demanding requirements for a new ATF fighter design. Both designs satisfied the requirements, and in 1991, the YF-22 design was selected as the winning contender for the Air Force's new fighter. The F-22 remained in test at Edwards to finalize the design before further development and production could begin. Each of the test missions must be meticulously planned to make certain that every last bit of data can be wrung out. Only a handful of prototypes are in existence, and the loss of a single one of them could set the program back by months. Colonel Rickerson describes a typical test mission for the F-22.
As a tester, a typical YF-22 mission, we would start out early in the morning of the day of. Obviously, a lot of time and effort went in a previous day mission planning, but the day of, we get together in a mass briefing, probably 50 or so contractors and Air Force representatives at the briefing, going over every aspect of the briefing. This is still early in the developmental testing of the F-22, so a lot of effort has gone into planning and making every detail of the flight very precisely controlled. When we're finished with this briefing, then we have a smaller group of individuals get together, the actual flight themselves, and brief up specific portions of the mission. Run out to the airplane, crank up, and taxi not very far from here out to the main runway, blast off, and the actual takeoff will normally be preceded by the chase airplane doing a takeoff. We chase the YF-22 missions with either an F-15 or an F-16. He'll take off first, do kind of a small circuit, and do what's called an airborne pickup on myself. I'd release brakes on his call, and then about the time I rotate and actually lift off, he joins up, checks over my configuration, raise the gear, and going out to about a 2.5-hour sortie generally. What we've been doing lately is mostly loads testing, a lot of vibroacoustics testing on board the airplane. We'll gradually go into more aeroelasticity testing, flutter, and finish it up, this small test program that we're in right now, finish it up with some weapons testing. Hopefully a launch of an AIM-9 Sidewinder in the May time frame.
For all the advanced features incorporated into the F-22 design, there was some worry that it might be too much for the pilot to handle once it finally reaches squadron service. The test pilots not only have to determine whether the aircraft flies as intended, but whether the interface between man and machine succeeds.
Definitely a lot is unique to the airplane. As far as flying it, getting in, cranking it up, well, I shouldn't say cranking it up, but as far as taking off, flying the airplane, turning left, turning right, climbing and descending, the good news is it handles just like you would want an airplane to handle. The average guy that could fly a Cessna with a little practice, very little practice at all, wouldn't have any trouble flying an F-22. The basic thing of watching your airspeed on final is still critical, but that's not that difficult to do, and it's not a difficult airplane at all to fly, and it's designed that way. It's not supposed to be difficult. It's supposed to be easy to fly. Flying the airplane, the basic airplane, is second nature, and now I'm worried about the mission a lot more. I'm spending my time worrying about the people that are out there as a threat, the people that perhaps are behind me as a threat, and that's what the airplane's set up to do. As far as transitioning from F-4s, F-15s, and I've flown both those quite a bit, F-16s as well, and the F-22, it's probably best described as a change in onboard avionics. The avionics themselves are getting much more sophisticated. What you can do as far as the different radar modes, detecting the threat, being able to provide the pilot with not just a lot of data from different places, but real information that's already been processed. That's a real key to what the F-22 is going towards. And that's the biggest difference. It's not the stick and throttle itself and the actual performance of the airplane, although the performance of the F-22 is getting better and better, or I should say as fighters progress, of course, the performance is getting better, but I'd say the biggest leap in advancement is onboard avionics.
The popular image of the test pilot is a bold adventurer pitting his wits against a dangerous aircraft on a risky mission. Times are changing in the world of airplanes, and the right stuff is changing too. Flying ability is no longer enough. It takes extraordinary skills to be in the elite ranks of today's top test pilots.